Surviving the Winter in the Middle Ages. Hello everyone, and welcome to a new story. As I sit here, wrapped in 3 electric blankets, turned on full blast, with a foot bath full of boiling water, and my hair looking like it's on fire in a desperate attempt to warm me, I can't help but wonder, how did people in the Middle Ages survive during the coldest months of the year? How did they stay warm? What did they eat? And how did they spend their time in an era without modern conveniences like double glazing, God of War Ragnarok, or Netflix? The onset of the Little Ice Age, which lasted from about 1300 to 1870, made the winters of the late Middle Ages even colder and more dangerous, with the constant threat of famine and disease. Winter was a time feared by all. Welcome to medieval madness. Peasant homes were often poorly insulated, built of wood, wattle, and clay, materials that let cold and damp in. To reduce exposure to frost, many European homes were built on earthen mounds, which helped retain heat. The heart of the house was the central fire, which not only provided heat but also served for cooking. The absence of traditional chimneys, replaced by simple ventilation holes in the roof, reduced heat dispersion but filled the room with soot, impregnating people and objects with smoke, especially in the winter months. Some houses had a second floor reached by a staircase, which was used primarily for storage. On the ground floor, around the fire, there were tables and beds, and there was often an adjacent space for housing livestock. This was not just a convenience. The animals provided additional body heat, essential during the harsh winter months. In Scandinavia, the Vikings built long houses with fire pits lined with stones, which retained and distributed heat throughout the building. These dwellings also housed cows, chickens, and pigs, which were essential not only as a source of food and materials, but also as real living heaters. However, the presence of animals made the environments crowded, noisy, and often smelly, but at least they avoided freezing to death. In February of 1352, extreme cold even froze the Venice Lagoon, the Atlantic Ocean near Bordeaux, and the Loire estuary. The Florence area of Italy was covered in snow for over a month. In 1359, chronicles reported exceptional snowfall in central Italy, with drifts so high that the snow had to be removed from roofs to prevent collapse, and it was piled in the streets, blocking entire cities. In Bologna, drifts reached 18 feet, and in Modena they were even higher. The winter of 1389 was particularly severe in the lake region of southern France. According to a chronicle from Montpellier, these snowfalls were so intense that they destroyed many farms. Many died under the rubble of collapsed houses, others from cold or hunger, since supplies had run out. Such climates were common in Scandinavia, but did not hinder travel and communication as they did further south. The Vikings, in fact, used skis to travel and hunt, and were well adapted to the conditions. Elsewhere in Europe, farmers relied on boots and scarves and horse-drawn transport, but in bad weather, long-distance travel became impossible. More isolated areas, such as the mountainous Lozère, had little chance of survival during the worst winters. Preparing for winter was endless work in farming communities. Firewood, essential for heating, was gathered from spring to summer and stored for the cold months. Food gathered in the fall had to be carefully preserved to last until the following spring. Salting, smoking, and drying were the most common techniques for preserving meat and fish, while grains and legumes were dried and stored in earthenware jars for use in soups and stews. Ground grains were often used in the production of bread and biscuits. Fresh fruits and berries were rare in the winter, so they were dried or pickled in the summer. Animals such as goats, cows, and chickens provided fresh milk and eggs, while dairy products were a crucial part of the diet. Milk was made into butter, cheese, or yogurt. In Scandinavia, a sour cheese called skyr was popular. Made by curdling and straining milk, it left a whey byproduct, perfect for pickling. A large barrel or cask could hold up to 30 liters, 53 pints of whey, enough to preserve a variety of foods such as beef, salted lamb, smoked ham, dried fish, and other foods, ensuring they would last for very long periods. Most people lived near a source of fresh water, such as a well, stream, or river, which made collecting water relatively easy. In emergencies or extreme weather conditions, snow could be melted to provide needed water. However, food supplies were not always guaranteed. Famines in Europe occurred cyclically, approximately every 20 years, and the most devastating was the Great Famine of 1315 and 1317. An exceptionally rainy spring in 1315 severely damaged crops, starting an unprecedented crisis. Agricultural production fell by up to a third, and entire kingdoms seemed to be in chaos. Livestock died from starvation and disease, and desperation led to extreme behavior, including infanticide and cannibalism. The famine affected approximately 30 million people, resulting in the deaths of 3 million. Although the Black Death of the 14th century would prove even more deadly, the Great Famine was the worst natural disaster of the late Middle Ages. Europe did not fully recover until 1322. After completing the essential winter survival tasks, people found ways to pass the time and maintain their sanity. Winter severely limited agricultural activities, and most of the time was spent indoors. However, there were opportunities for recreation. Snow games such as skating on frozen lakes and rivers using horse shanks or pieces of smooth wood were popular. Later, skates were made of iron. In Viking communities, snowball fights were considered excellent training for young warriors. The Duchess of Burgundy's Book of Hours from 1460 shows illustrations of snowball fights between adults and children, and similar depictions are found in medieval manuscripts and frescoes. Indoors, free time was spent on activities such as spinning wool, telling stories, or playing games. Board games such as chess, backgammon, and dice games were particularly popular. The Vikings enjoyed strategic board games, while in other regions wild boar hunts combined sport and foraging. One of the most widely read texts during the early Middle Ages was the Secretum Secretorum, a treatise that addressed ethical, astrological, and medical issues, offering food for thought and learning even during the long, cold winter months. During the winter, medieval medicine attributed a predominant role to phlegm in determining the mood of the season, but its effects could be mitigated by dietary measures. Warm meats, such as game pigeon and mutton, were recommended, accompanied by fine red wines. However, bloodletting, fornication, laxatives, and any kind of excess were discouraged. Although overeating was considered less harmful in the winter months than in other seasons, as the body's natural heat was concentrated internally, promoting better digestion. This type of dietary wisdom was especially useful during the Christmas celebrations. For those living in the southern regions of Europe, accustomed to hot, sultry summers, a harsh medieval winter came as a shock. In contrast, the inhabitants of the northern regions were better prepared and more experienced in dealing with ice and snow, thanks to their furs and practical measures. However, the dangers of winter were not limited to the cold. Hunger was a constant threat, with food supplies rapidly dwindling. Furthermore, the lower temperatures favored the spread of disease, as people were forced to live in cramped and crowded spaces. The provisions accumulated throughout the year helped keep medieval people warm and fed, but in the depths of winter, death was never far away. The harsh climate and the hardships of daily life made this season a test of survival for many. We've come to the end. Thanks for watching this episode of Viaggio nel Tempo. I hope you're staying warm this winter. If you enjoyed the video, give it a like and subscribe to the channel. See you next time.